everybody. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving weekend. So just a reminder that this week we're going to be reviewing your character design. We don't need to see your storyboards and we don't need any location designs. It's really just strictly the character. And it's just going to be a single pose, as refined as you can make it, just so that we have a clear idea of what you're trying to do in 3D. And it'll be the easiest way to give you some detailed feedback so you can go back, tweak anything that's necessary, and then update that for the final submission in week 8 when your character design package and animatic is due. So between classes on Friday, some of you in groups 3 and 4, or maybe it's just really great group 3 because I had started after the group 4 class, I was just kind of going through and just doing some quick concepts in Photoshop. And, I'm not the fastest at doing this type of thing, so I did spend, about 10-15 minutes on each one, I think. Maybe a bit less, I don't know. But I just wanted to go through my process for this if you're new to any kind of character design. And it really, first of all, starts from the idea, like, what's this character about? And to be honest, when I was starting to do this, I wasn't even thinking about that. But as I kind of got into it, and we've got the blue, and we got the number 13, I'm thinking about it's like a robot, who's maybe not super lucky. Maybe they're a little bit on the depressed side, being blue. Blue, sadness, all of that. So again, color theory is going to come into this a bit. 13 and some of the decals, they're complementary colors. Obviously orange is the complementary to blue. So that's kind of the pattern or the colors I was going with for this particular robot, right? So we had our blues and we have our oranges. Typically when I go through this stuff, I'll go in and work through the silhouettes first, or just basic shapes first, and then I'll just kind of work out from there. So if I were to do another version, so we got already kind of a really rubbery or, not rubbery, rubber hose circular robot, and we have something that's a bit more lanky. So maybe something that's a bit in between the two as another idea or another iteration, right? And normally when you're designing, you're not just going to do one version. You want to do as many versions as you can in order to come up with the best. Maybe in the end I might do a combination of some of these perhaps, right? So again, I'm just kind of working through silhouettes. So if I'm doing something that's going to be a little bit blockier this time, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be a bit more top heavy? Like this guy's already a little bit top heavy, right? I've got to figure out where the legs are going to come out from. Maybe this one's a bit more of like an AT-AT type of walker, or like Ed 209 if anybody's ever seen like RoboCop, right? So I can kind of maybe start figuring out that a little bit. Like, is he going to be more knock-kneed perhaps, or maybe these are like really kind of covering the toes, and kind of thinking about that a little bit, but really just kind of getting into the overall silhouette. Like, what will this kind of look like? Maybe he has little T-Rex arms or something like that. I almost see them already down in through here, right? He's got these little kind of T-Rex arms that come out, which means that, maybe they connect in up in through here. So he is maybe perhaps a bit more of a hunchy robot. His head's going to be over here maybe somehow. Maybe this is kind of a jetpack, right? So he's got like this thing on his back here. Right? I'm just use an eraser and, just recut in some of the angles and stuff. And once I've got some of that going on, I am going to switch back over to a bit more of a sketchy pencil, only because I use the less sketchy one just for the overall silhouette. Normally I will go with a sketchy pencil for all of it. That said, it really depends on what we're trying to do, but I'm going to go with a not like a super dark pencil, just like a slightly darker version of what we have already. All right, so as I was mentioning, maybe these little T-Rex arms connect underneath here, right? Which means maybe this is kind of like the chest area here, and he's going to have some kind of little head buried in. Like he's got like these giant, little tiny arms. His head's going to be here. I want to go with that skull look still, I think, with this guy. And this is almost like where the neck is, and these are like kind of the traps where trapezius muscle, even for like a robot, I'm trying to think of how the anatomy would kind of work with that, right? So the back area is here, and then the legs are going to come out of these big sockets. It almost reminds me a little bit of those Robotech walkers at the moment, even though there is going to be some kind of head here, right? So maybe a little, I don't think he's going to have something. I'll go with maybe that skull-shaped mouth again, just to keep it similar across. I think that's kind of working. And he's going to have maybe some pistons, a la, what's that game I was thinking of? It's a game I really like too. The robots. Portal. He's got like the Portal style pistons coming out the side, maybe. And this is where I'm going to just try to make this somewhat symmetrical. Right? Asymmetry is great in design, but for you guys, especially for this one, I would try to keep it a little bit more symmetrical, just so the rigging process is a little bit easier. You can kind of go more asymmetrical, perhaps, with your final design, your capstone creature, or capstone creature. So I was just doing some capstone creature stuff with the digital creature group just a second ago. Almost wonder if maybe there should be like little wings or something that come off the side. Oh, something. And I think I'm going to cut this part out just a bit. Right, so now that I've got kind of a symmetrical design going on, I can start maybe adding in a little bit more detail here. Right, so maybe just kind of figure out like where my light source is. I'm just going to go top down for this. Right, so a lot of this is going to be in shadow, but his head's sticking out, so that's going to be, I'm just trying to figure out the volumes a bit more. Right, that's going to be something, these little wings, I didn't really shade these in, so let's just kind of give everything some kind of volume, right? And everything really down over here is really going to be kind of in shadow, maybe, for the most part. It's under the body. Cool. Now I'm going to go in and give it some even darker shading and shadows, like around maybe where the eyes are going to be. And start thinking of some of the details a little bit more, right? And where are the shadows going to be? Like, so again, I'm thinking of this as being volumes. So there's going to be definitely a shadow under the head. And like these little arms and things, these are all going to be in shadows. Under the body, all this stuff's going to be kind of like these pistons. All this stuff's going to be in shadow and shade. And again, I'm going to need to probably cut into this a bit more as we go. Thinking of little details as I go through it as well. And things will just kind of present themselves as we do our little sketchy things. And again, just kind of cutting in where I need to. And I don't know how helpful this is actually going to be for you guys, because I'm sure you guys are all pretty familiar with just drawing and stuff. Now that I got that going on, I'm going to start thinking about some of the darker areas. I might do this on a separate layer so I can put stuff underneath it. Now I'm going to go in with just a little bit more finer details at this point. Oops, let me go back to my brush. Right, and we're just going to kind of figure some of this stuff out. He's going to have glowing eyes, I'm pretty sure. I wonder if I'll Darth Vader it up a bit. It has a bit of a Darth Vader vibe, right? A little bit. And then, just kind of going through, just cutting in where some of the details might actually end up being, right? And I can go back in and, I think I probably got a little bit too fine maybe for some of this. Keep it a bit more of a chunky brush. Maybe it's going to be a little bit less cartoony maybe. Just figure out how things are going to bend. Like where are all those little bendy bits going to take place or happen, right? And then that's coming out over here. That's coming out over there. Something like this maybe. And again, I'm just kind of going through, cutting in details and just kind of figuring stuff out as I go. And we got our pistons over here, coming out from here, going in over here. Same over on this side. So, this is how it's going to be kind of moving. I've done a couple robots like this, like the one for the bumper I'm going to do this year has this kind of connection. So maybe it's just something I like doing with the pistons. Has that kind of portal vibe to it though. We got the knees, and that comes down over here, and we got the knee over on this side, and we got this thing over here is going to connect. And then we've got some kind of claw foot thing for the toes, and this goes underneath, right? And then this is going to go over top. Right, so I'm kind of going over top of the volumes I've established, right? The volumes kind of help determine like where everything kind of fits, but again, it kind of gives me some leeway to kind of do some interpretations or kind of go to town and add in extra little bits I might not have thought about initially, perhaps. All right, and this is going to come back here. Maybe there's some kind of ventilation or something off the top. And then, again, some kind of booster pack here, which is going to have some kind of vent in the front here. And because we're looking underneath, we can kind of see the angle of the booster. I mean the ventilation thing. And because we're on the same side, something like that. And then we have like these little wings that maybe come off the side of the boosters. Right? And this one's a bit more buried under there. And then there's something here. I don't like this curve. I'm going to keep it a bit more angled. And this thing comes off over here. Figure that one out in a second. Maybe that's just more of a decal or something. And then we're going to erase some of this stuff here. Oops, not the color though. And I don't know if I should be doing this time-lapsed. We're at 15 minutes already, which isn't so bad. But I guess I'm talking this time as I do it. Cool. All right. So again, I could just go in and maybe kind of figure out like where the light's coming down from. Maybe this stuff is a little bit more in the light. It's kind of neat. And we can just maybe go a little bit darker in some spots. I think I will go a little bit lighter for the overall face. There's like some stripes down it. I don't know. Okay. So now I've got that, usually what I'll do is I'll go with a really light color and just start going around the edging. It kind of acts as like a edge wear, right? So just kind of going around, not everything, but just kind of around the main areas where there might be some wear and tear, like dings and things like that, right? So we're starting to get like this type of thing you see in the other designs. Particularly useful for robots and things like that. And I can even kind of indicate maybe other paneling, or maybe there's going to be some kind of line work or decals, right? I can kind of indicate that maybe. Maybe not with pure white though, so I do want to do one other thing after this. Right, so again, I just go on one side, and it'll act as that kind of wear and tear. Cool. And then once I've got that, then I can start thinking about decals a little bit. Right, so he is going to be number 13 again. Put it on this kind of wing over here. Maybe he's got some kind of war paint that runs down his face. I put in some, again, some decals or something. Maybe it goes down on one side of the body or something like that. I'll stick with some kind of just random patterns like I have on the other one, just so it's very consistent. Right, you can just go in and put in little bits and stuff. Now in the scheme of things, I really like the little round one the best so far. So just so you guys know, this one's going to be kind of cool, but I do like the little round one. If I were to model something about this little guy, I like. Cool. And I'll just clean up some of the edging a bit more. Now one thing we can do once we've got something I'm happy with is validate the design. And it's something that I mentioned in chat, in the design chat, just running this stuff through the Nano Banana AI. And again, it's just a way we can just test the design, see if it works. I'm not a huge fan of that face. I know it's very similar to the other faces, but I'm almost wondering, maybe it'd be cooler if I went with like some kind of, maybe just like a giant lens or something. Maybe there's a helmet. Maybe it's like a mech, right? Maybe there's like a little guy driving this guy. That could be kind of cool, right? So I'm going to do two variations of this. So let me just take this here, right? And I'm going to change this into more of a bubble, right? And let's just go in and go back to our pencil and kind of fill this in. Right? So reflections and stuff. Right? So it's more of a dome. And then inside that, maybe there's like a little chair or something like that, like a shadow of a chair where it's like a little mech. There's like some pedals or something like that, and some handles and gears. Maybe there's like screens and monitors inside there. And I wonder what that's going to look like. So I'm going to do as I mentioned, two variations of this. Oh, you know what? I've got another idea. So the mech is one idea. What if it's just a round frowny face? Right, so that's another idea here too. So let me just put that chair back in there, the pedals and stuff. Okay, so that's one idea, and I'm going to duplicate this guy out. And then the other idea is, what if this is just more of a frowny face? It's just a frowny face, number 13. I'm starting to dig that a little bit. Here, let me just give this a bit more of the stuff around there. Maybe there's like a stripe that runs down through the middle. Almost reminds me of old school Iron Man a little bit. The stripe needs to be centered. That'd be helpful. A little light in there. I think that suits things better, right? I mean, the chair thing I would need to refine a bit, so I'm gonna go between these two guys. I think in terms of the design language being similar to the other ones, I think this one is actually more suiting. Right? It kind of goes in line with this a bit more. Maybe I can just put a little bit of a orange decal there or something like that. Cool. I'll go with this. All right. So let's say I've got my design here. It's like this mech. It's got like the backwards legs and stuff. Now what I can do is I can try to validate this design. So this is where I might take it into Nano Banana quickly and just see if this is going to work in 3D. So that's what I mean by validating. You just want to see, does it look cool in 3D? Like on paper, there's some character to it, but how is this going to translate? So I'm finding the Nano Banana works pretty darn good. If I were to go in and just do a bit of a screen capture just with this guy, Control C, and I'm going to create a new chat, and let's see here. And basically I just say, make this into a 3D render. Make this into a detailed 3D render of this frowning mech robot. Okay, and then white background. White. Yeah, let's see what happens. And this is what I get. It's actually not too bad. Gives me a pretty good idea, to be honest. What I might say is that, the eyes need to be cut out. So let's check that out. So I think I need to go back in and just clean up those eyes a little bit. Maybe the colors around them too. I think it's getting a little confused. So let me just go back in and just clean this up. Just clean it up just a tiny little bit. Because again, yeah, it's just not quite reading these cutouts for the eyes here. Let's try something a little bit more like this. See if it pays off. Okay, so with a little bit of tweaking, because it was still round in the beginning, we got something that looks kind of cool. I'm actually not too dissatisfied with this. The fingers are a little bit mangly. These ones are a little bit better, but overall it's actually looking pretty neat. And if I'm not happy, I can just go back and start retweaking or maybe do another couple versions of this. Cool. So I ended up running all of them through the AI just to see how they look. And to be honest, I'm still leaning towards this little guy. I don't know, something about him I like. But there's a lot of promise with these other designs. You can see how quick it gets you kind of a proof of concept from a very sketchy initial design. And, it gives me something a little bit more solid to work from once I start modeling and stuff like that as well, which is kind of cool. Okay, what I'm going to do is probably do one other example that's maybe not a robot. And that'll be in my next part. All right, cheers.